Good afternoon and welcome to the CleanTech Lithium PLC corporate update. Throughout this recorded presentation, investors will be in listen-only mode. Questions are encouraged and can be submitted by the Q&A tab situated in the right-hand corner of your screen. Just simply type in your questions and press send. The company may not be in a position to answer every question it receives during the meeting itself. However, the company will review all questions submitted today and publish responses where it is appropriate to do so. Before we begin, I'd like to submit the following poll. And I'd now like to hand you over to Dr. Aldo Boitano, CEO. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon. Welcome, everyone. We're very happy, delighted to be meeting with investors, current investors and future ones to tell us the update of our company, especially the fundraise that we completed last week. With that, I'll pass the introduction of this presentation to Dr. Steve Kessler.
Good afternoon. For those that we might not have met or talked to in the past, we'll just introduce ourselves. I'm Steve Kessler. I'm the chairman of the company. I've been in the mining business my entire life, 45 years for major companies, Rio Tinto, BHP, Billiton. I have been chief executive of a lithium company listed in Australia, European Lithium. I've had over 30 years of project experience in Chile, initially with Escondida, responsible for its growth from its startup to its capacity at 1 million tons a year, the largest copper mine in the world, and then as the first CEO of Collahuasi, taking that from extraction through financing, permitting, and into construction. My background is in hydrometallurgy. So linking together my background in lithium, Chile, and hydrometallurgy, I was very honored to be asked to come on board as chairman and enjoying it immensely. Aldo?
Thank you, Steve. My name is Aldo Boitano. I have also a strong background in mining, and especially in the last years on renewable energy. I developed, along with other engineering people, projects in solar energy that account for 800 megawatts. I'm a civil industrial engineer. I've also held various chief executive office positions and management roles. And I'm one of the two co-founders of the company that started in 2017, always with the aim of being the greenest lithium producer of the world. We have 3 lithium projects that account for more than 500 square kilometers in license areas. We have up to now a total resources that are above 2 million tons. 800,000 of them are indicated and measured. The remaining are inferred. Part of the reason we raised funds last week, when we did the IPO, we were not funding additional drilling campaigns, and we had, on top of drilling more and better on the last year campaign that made our resources go up. We also spent some more of the money we have budgeted. But nevertheless, the idea is to take those 2 million to somewhere between 4.5, 5 million tons with just the 2 main resources who have been developed, with Laguna Verde and Francisco Basin. Those 2 projects sit in wholly owned license basins. We don't have any competing lithium projects. We don't have indigenous community, very limited flora and fauna. And at the same time, this is a big requirement for part of the direct lithium extraction, and it's part of our green credentials. It's a much cleaner technology to extract lithium. And the only way you can really do the circle of direct lithium extraction is when you control the basins, so you can re-inject the spent brine without lithium. We have a very experienced board, as Steve just was mentioned, and that's true for the remaining of the board. Not only strong governance and finance and board experience, but also hands-on experience on developing projects from startup all the way into production. And the same can be said about the management team in Chile. Chile is one of the countries with the most advanced engineering mining skills. It's very normal that projects that are done around the planet, their engineering is subcontracted and done in Chile. Bechtel, for example, their world mining headquarters are based in Chile. And we've also, to really do the best job we can, we really stepped up the team in Chile, in Jersey, and in London, where we have offices, and that also has require additional funds. We listed on the AIM in March 17. We raised 5.6 million pounds at 30p. We raised before that in October of 2021 in a pre-IPO 4 million pounds at 20. We're currently trading around 52p, and we had these additional funds. We're very pleased at a very low discount, 3.98, 4% discount from the weighted average of the previous 10 days to the raise, and that meant a 47p raise that we did, where we read 12.3 million pounds. We'll explain more as we go with the presentation. Again, Laguna Verde, 1.5 million tons, 800 of them indicated and measured. Francisco Basin, 500,000 tons inferred. And Yamará, a completely greenfield exploration project. It sits in the northern part of the lithium triangle, a little to the northwest of Salar de Atacama, the largest reserve and production place in the whole planet. And we aim, again, with the funds we just raised, to find lithium in this project and to expand it. Part of the board, more importantly, that I haven't mentioned, is the technical advisory board with Marcelo Bravo, one of the top world's experts in brine and in lithium in particular, developed projects of brine in Australia, South Africa, Chile, Argentina, Peru, and working on the engineering development of our projects. And this is what we did again with the last 6 months with the money we raised at the IPO level. We always said we were all the way funded into the pre-feasibility studies, but we were not having fund additional drilling campaigns and not fund hydrological work and other things that happen that we understood were needed to be done to de-risk the project and to move it forward. But nevertheless, so the last 6 months, environmental impact assessment started at both projects, Laguna Verde and Francisco Basin. We already have a draft of the scoping study at Laguna Verde. We're working on it. We're going to be releasing in the next month or so. With our own resin and our own process, we developed via direct lithium extraction 1 kilo of battery-grade lithium that was certified in Germany for in excess of the 9.5% requirement. It had 99.9% of lithium and is suitable for battery production and other usage of battery-grade lithium. We applied for the Yamará project successfully, but had all the licenses. It's, like I said, it's a very large project, 145 square kilometers. Francisco Basin, a place where it never had been drilled before successfully. We did a very good drilling and added the maiden resource of 500,000 tons and put this place in the map in the whole world. And we expanded the original 1.2, mostly inferred resource at the Laguna Verde into 1.5, where more than half is measured and indicated. Steve?
Yes, and this is where we're going during the course of the next year or 2 years. The money that we've raised in this in the fundraising last week, largely going into resource and reserve development. As Aldo mentioned, we're currently sitting on 2 million tons of lithium carbonate equivalent. Our analysts and technical experts believe there's no reason why we can't get into the 4+ million tons by the time we've completed the drilling and resource evaluation the middle of next year. This puts us in the same sort of size comparison as Lake Resources, which is a sort of peer comparison in Argentina. We have scoping studies underway. They'll advance into pre-feasibility studies by the middle to third quarter of next year. We're working on the hydrometallurgy with Sun Resin, which is the largest resin manufacturer in China and the most developed lithium plant manufacturer in the world. They have a number of plants working in China and just about to come into Argentina. And Aldo will tell you more about that relationship. Where we're expecting a lot of activity in the next 6 to 9 months is post our scoping study, when we put out the first economic valuation of the project, as well as people seeing the size of the resource we're going to be. We've already had a couple of knocks on the door from traditional trading houses and Chinese interests interested in offtake and potential equity participation in the project. We've pushed those discussions out until such time as we have demonstrated a larger reserve and the economic value of the projects. And the number of players are getting much wider than the Chinese and trading houses. We're seeing the major mining companies like Rio Tinto entering this space for the first time earlier this year with their acquisition of the brine lithium project in Argentina, Rincon. And only yesterday, the chief executive of Rio Tinto was publicly stating that they want to expand their position in lithium, and they've charged the investment banks around the world to bring them attractive projects. We've seen the motor manufacturers like Tesla and Volkswagen also publicly stating that to secure supply of lithium, they are considering going upstream into owning mines or participation in mining projects to get a secure supply of lithium. The battery manufacturers are also going that way. Now, I'm absolutely certain that during the course of this next 6 to 9 months, we will have quite a number of these knocking on our doors, wanting to know more about the project and potentially looking for a participation in the project. We have deliberately not given any offtake contracts. We don't intend to give any offtake contracts until we advance those strategic discussions, because we believe that is the carrot to attract a strong and the best partner for us that can mobilize the largest part of the construction finance that we need to get into production. So that's all a topic that's going to take a lot of activity next year. Our aim is to finish the pre-feasibility study, third quarter next year, then finalize strategic partner, get into discussions on what is the financing package, complete the DFS, the environmental permitting, ready to go into construction and then into production in 2025. That's the plan forward. The funds we raised last week will take us largely through that, certainly through until the end of the pre-feasibility study. Aldo?
Look closely at the projects and also how we want to develop them with the funds we just acquired last week. Laguna Verde, as I said, it's our more developed asset. We have, again, 1.5 million tons of lithium at 260 milligrams per lithium. We believe that grade is somewhat low because of fresh water contaminating or diluting some of the brine in the 4 holes campaign we did in the previous drilling season. And that's because we drill more and deeper, and winter caught up with us last winter, last May, June of last year, and we couldn't really finish separating that surface water into the subsurface brine. And we found at 409 milligrams of lithium in the deepest sample. But so the first job we're doing as we are resuming drilling, we have the campsite set up and the machinery up there, is to recondition those 4 holes, again, with this new budget that we have. And with that, do an upgrade resource as we are able to separate fresh water from brine. At the same time, we're going to run a 2, and we'll see if we do more than 2, up to 4 drilling wells to expand even more the resource up to somewhere 2.5, 3 million tons of resource. Again, trying to make as much as that as indicated and measured. That is the case now. There's a strong geothermal influence on all the brine. Every single one that we collected were between 20 and 30 degrees. This is important for the OPEX saving and the work we're doing in the scoping study. That, again, we have a draft and we'll be releasing in the next month or so as we review it. We have also started the environmental impact assessment. We're starting the hydrogeological work. A lot of work undergoing with the aims to having the pre-feasibility study to start before the end of this year. Francisco Basin, I already told you, we went from 0 to 500,000 tons with just 1 very well executed hole. We drill at 328 meters of depth. We had an idea originally with the geophysics that we'll have 100 meters of subsurface brine, and we ended up having 204 and a very consistent grade of 305 milligrams per liter, as we were completely able to seal the subsurface aquifer from the deeper subsurface aquifer where the lithium and the brine is. Part of the reasons we spend more money in Francisco Basin and the requirement of new funds is, again, because we drill deeper and farther. But at the same time, we had a blowout similar to that exploration of oil and gas. We had a 50 meters below the surface, a 50-meter band of clay that very thick, and that kept the subsurface aquifer being a confined aquifer. Confined aquifer means that there's more than one atmospheric pressure down there. And once you drill through that went 2/3 of that drilling tower you see at the bottom right. That's very good news because it's a very consistent grade, but it also creates some technical and problems that cause delays and had to fix some of the machinery. Just as Laguna Verde, our aim is to move with 4 holes, expand the resource and move that into measured and indicated. 1 hole again produced 500,000 tons. Our brokers also have the idea that Francisco Basin could be easily a 2.5 million ton resource that will really add up with Laguna Verde. We aim to have at least 4 million resource before we lock down, we close the drilling season. It's an 8-inch diameter cased all the way down to the 328 meters. It can be easily a production bore or a monitoring bore when we move into a commercial operation, and it will serve as well now for all the brine we need for the direct lithium extraction, small lab test pilot scale, and then the larger to produce 1 ton of lithium. Just as Laguna Verde, scoping study, it's underway. The pre-feasibility is planned the first half of next year. It's a little bit less advanced in timing with Laguna Verde, who we started earlier, but the environmental impact statements and the baselines have been done at the same time, and we're going to run simultaneously drilling campaign with Laguna Verde. It's a very logistics and engineering challenge that we did successfully in the previous season, and we're doing it as we speak. We released an RNS midweek last week. Yamara, it's like I said, a very different project, much northern, at a lower elevation. Laguna Verde and Francisco Basin sit at 4,300 meters above sea level, and that explains part of the reason there's no flora or fauna or indigenous communities, but at the same time, it's an elevation that is very common in Chile for copper mines. Steve in Coyahuasi had a campsite around 5,000 meters when he developed the now second largest copper mine of the world. But Yamara sits at 1,000 meters with no significant flora or fauna. We control the southern part of the basin. There's evidence of lithium on the surface with very salty crusts, and we acquired an old geophysics done by oil and gas exploration, where you can see that low magenta color that shows, just as in Francisco Basin and Laguna Verde, where we did our own geophysics. It shows low resistivity or high conductivity. That means there's evidence of very hypersaline brine down there in a depth of 300 to 400 subsurface aquifer. And our aim is in November, early December, to drill one very deep hole to see what grade of lithium we find. And then again, with the money we just raised last week, expand this to a full lithium project with resources and everything. We're, like I said, environmentally committed, not only with direct lithium extraction, but also my background on renewable energy, that the combination of both direct lithium extraction that doesn't need evaporation ponds, has a small footprint, there's no subsurface depletion, as you can re-inject the spent brine without lithium, without any additional chemicals or anything. It's an organic way of working with the resin and extracting the lithium from the brine. It takes a few hours instead of a year of the series of evaporation ponds to do the same. And in those few hours, concentrates the brine from anywhere to 200 or 600 parts per million to 10,000, and from there on is a known process of lithium enrichment into battery grade. The recovery rate and we tested this at the resin level is 95%, and then the overall process of direct lithium extraction means you have a recovery rate of lithium between 80 and 85%. That's double the one you have in evaporation ponds. It's a combination of the mechanical and chemical process that has been working in Leiben, Argentina, in a salar that produces 20,000 tons per year for more since 1998, and in 3 salty lakes in China as well. Mechanical and chemical, because it starts with nanofiltering to get the larger molecules of magnesium and calcium out, and then the resin work with the absorption of the lithium out of the brine, then creating a eluted liquid. From there on, you have reverse osmosis, then you have forced evaporation, and then you have ionic exchange to remove the traces of boron and other materials. This is known in other industries as the uranium industry that Steve took part and developed one of the largest ionic exchange plants in the world for uranium, if not the largest. And it's going to go forward as a standard process in the whole world. You can see here all the companies that are working with direct lithium extraction, the 3 producing lakes in China with Sun Resin, who we early on in 2017 we approached, and who since then really step up their presence in the western part of the world with the acquisition of 2 wholly owned companies in Belgium that produce bulbs and pilot plant small units and larger units. They paired with Hatch in North America, had a PFS project and an MOU signed with Hanson, a company in Utah who's developing lithium in a low-grade lithium project. They did very impressively in only 5 months after receiving a purchase order, delivered 134 containers, what is now the initial 25,000 tons per year initial stage of a project in Argentina, only 250 kilometers away in the other side of the Andes for our Laguna Verde project. And it's going to take them only 9 months to construct. Their OPEX and CAPEX, both at the PFS level in the US with Anson and also in Argentina, are in line with our work we're doing with the scoping study and information we provide the market on our admission document in the IPO in March. More interesting here is all the companies that are going forward with direct lithium extraction. Most of them working with a black box technology providers like Lilac, who we sampled in 2018, and who offer us the same deal that has now with Lake Resources, where they're up to take 25% of the equity of Lake Resources in exchange of a pilot plan and a PFS. They offer us the very same thing last year, and from there we rejected because they needed 24 months to prove the so-called technology. They needed 24 months to prove their so-called technology, and we would have prevented us to go to the IPO and would have prevented us to go forward. And the so-called proven technology needed all that time. By then, we knew more about direct lithium extraction and our brine, because Sun Resin has an open approach to technology. They sell you the resin, the pilot plant, the whole production plant, EPC style, all the way from brine to battery-grade lithium, like a normal mining vendor, mining provider. And they, at the same time, are very generous with information that we have been filling into the environmental impact assessments and the scoping study, and then the future PFS and everything. We're heavily undervalued with the amount of resources we have. We aim with our 2 co-brokers, Daniel Fox Davis, who originally listed us, and now Canaccord, who released a very powerful and deep note 2 weeks ago, to be more known around the planet. We have a big base of our shareholders in Australia. I'm traveling next week to Australia to meet them in person, and we will have extensive meetings over virtual calls, etc. With this, again, mention the importance of clean energy, and not only clean energy, the infrastructure in place in Laguna Verde and Francisco Basin. The same can be said for Yamará. Paved highways that go through Laguna Verde into Argentina, an international highway. Francisco Basin has 4 access roads. Some of them come from the connect from the international highway as well. There's a substation within a couple of kilometers in Francisco Basin with ample capacity, an electrical substation. There's cell phone coverage there. Laguna Verde has in mining terms a very close connection to another substation 52 kilometers away, where if you manage, as I have done in the past, a power purchase agreement with a 24/7 renewable energy provider, they will provide you the construction of the line to site. A port just straight east to west from the coast, being expanded as we speak for other mining activities. And again, this speaks volumes of the importance in Chile of mining and the amount of the type of jurisdiction that we are compared to those of Canada and Australia. Steve?
Yeah, environmental sustainability is very much in focus around the world in the mining industry today. We're seeing the EU really wanting to tackle climate change. One of its major drives is to move all the motor manufacturing to electric vehicles. But not only does it want to see the vehicles electric, it wants to make sure that the supply chain of all the materials going into those batteries, nickel, cobalt, and lithium, are coming from sustainable sources, low carbon sources. So that is where we're going to see a drive, is those motor manufacturers and battery manufacturers want to get a source, not just of lithium carbonate and hydroxide, but clean, low carbon lithium carbonate and hydroxide. We're seeing in Chile, we've had the presidential elections this year. The new government is very supportive of the mining sector, with the proviso that it's done in an environmentally sustainable way. The government also pushing towards net zero carbon. And in particular, if we look at lithium production in the north of Chile through conventional means of the evaporation ponds, where the brine from the aquifer is evaporated and lost. They like our approach and our technology that we don't do that. We take the brine, take the lithium, and return that water back underground, so no net water loss from the aquifer. So we expect that the government will be very supportive as we go through our environmental permitting procedure. Alex?
Yeah. We already mentioned Chile and the importance in the global scene of lithium. We have the largest global reserves and the largest producing place in Salar de Atacama, and its whole brine production. We have the highest income country in Latin America. We've reduced strongly poverty and have created a big middle class, educated middle class, against strong mining codes and laws, and that's never been on dispute. We had a social unrest in 2019 that moved the country into work a way of having a new constitution that was proposed and was rejected by the largest vote ever in Chile on September the 5th. That has many very strong now center-left to center-right pro-business, accounting for around 80% of the Congress, to produce a new proposed constitution, but with very strong ground rules and an overseen body of experts to at the same time meet the requirements of a new constitution going forward, but at the same time assuring that the country keeps on its track of being a developed country. Where we have free trade agreements with 85% of the world's economy, more importantly with the US, who now is going to be requiring by 2026 that lithium and other key minerals into the battery are coming from free trade agreements or from the US. The president itself of Chile in September, with the treasury minister, announced a renewable commitment to invest in Chile. And today, as we speak in London, the mining ministry is attending a conference and a talk to lure investors to come to Chile with speed permitting on the environmental front, tax incentives, etc. As Steve said, it's highly supportive of sustainable extraction and a green approach to produce lithium. We've had a very good reception of the government. Our projects have been taken abroad to conferences in other parts of the world, showing our credentials. And here you can see in the top pictures the impact of a large evaporation port in San Juan Atacama, more than 50 square kilometers, with the impact on the environment and the local indigenous communities who live there. That's now our case with the small footprints and our clean approach to technology. Steve?
Yeah, again, this is an example of some of the players, the motor manufacturers and battery manufacturers that have committed to green technology to ensure that the batteries come from sustainable sources. I've mentioned that we are in discussion with a couple, but there'll be a much wider group, and you can see some of the names there that we will expect to come knocking on the door to discuss our project much more. The EU is the area of the world that's seeing the strongest increase in demand for lithium. Analysts are expecting the demand to increase by 20 times in this current decade. We're clearly seeing the price at the moment is at an all-time high of $75,000 a ton today. That certainly will go down as more projects come into the market. But there are people saying that long-term price will be in the $20,000 to $25,000 a ton range. It's difficult to guesstimate out that far. There's been other articles by Benchmark Minerals really promoting the increased demand, not just for electric vehicles, but for electric storage linked to wind and solar to get more stability in the electrical system. And there is the potential for pricing to stay stronger for longer. If we look at the next slide, this is what we believe is very important. You look at the carbon intensity of the hard rock production, largely out of Australia and going to be coming out of Africa. It's all going to China for conversion to lithium carbonate, lithium hydroxide, and then into cathodes and then into batteries. So a high carbon footprint, brine evaporation less so, but still significant. And this is where we expect to be close to zero carbon emission with our lithium. We believe that's going to give us a good marketing advantage, particularly into the EU and the US. And we believe that over time, the demands on those battery manufacturers to demonstrate their clean supply of lithium, that will translate into a premium for our production in the future. These are some of the deals that have been done during the course of the last months. There's a lot of M&A activity. Many car manufacturers, battery manufacturers, the traditional Chinese lithium manufacturers, all scrambling to secure lithium supply. We've seen Rio Tinto buy Rincon for $825 million, Ganfeng at Lithia in Argentina. They've also bought out Bacanora in Mexico, car manufacturers going into Vulcan, CTR. This can only increase during the course of the next year, and I'm sure we will be part of those discussions with parties interested in taking a strategic investment in this project and largely supporting the construction plan to get it into production.
We mentioned a lot about Sunresin and our 1 kilo battery production. I'm going to reiterate some of those concepts. We produce a 1 kilo battery grade certified in Germany in excess of the requirements and with very low impurities. We signed an MOU with Sunresin and announced it to the market because they're the world leader in commercial scale DLE plants and because they have an open approach to technology and to be a vendor and a technological partner from us with no strings attached, royalties, or any other thing, because we've been working with them since 2017, and we saw them come to the West, both commercially and also with projects. And nevertheless, this project in Argentina, where in only 5 months after the purchase order, it's going to take them 9 months to construct. They're building the first stages of a 25,000 ton per year plant. And this suits us very well with our goal of be producing lithium and selling lithium in 2025. We have imported from Belgium a very small unit to do a lab test work with DLE, and the chemical process provided by us. We have people who have been working with SQM and Albemarle over time. And with that, we'll produce small quantities of lithium to be sent to the final end users, off-takers, and they in turn can set up their computerized way of producing the products they have, batteries and others. And then with a larger pilot plant of 1 ton, we'll be producing, that's going to be sent to us in the next 26 weeks. We're going to be producing large quantities of lithium to be sent to the same off-takers and battery producers and end users to produce batteries. That means when we start into production, we'll go directly into production and selling. Again, the path to production we receive this desire by our existing shareholders. 80% of them are the ones who, 80% of the money raised last week comes from these existing shareholders, strong backing us up, but at the same time urging to go faster and do more. And that's the path forward with Laguna Verde, with the resource upgrade scoping study to be completed already. Like I said, have a draft, the pilot plant at the lab scale being done in this month, and the larger scale pilot plant in the next 26 weeks. Another resource upgrade once the drilling season finishes, then the plant production and PFS complete. The same with Francisco Basin. You have to add all these things we have in Laguna Verde in a little delay way, and then advance Yamara project, hopefully like Francisco Basin, from zero initial lithium resources to a maiden resource and an extended drilling campaign.
Yeah, so in summary, these are the points that we think make this a very special project. We believe that working with Sunresin, we have a very short lead time into production using their technology. Infrastructure, physical infrastructure, and human capital in Chile is absolutely excellent. It's not like developing a project in Central Africa. This is first world infrastructure, first world people. Because we're up at the elevation 4,300 meters, there's no vegetation there, there's no indigenous people. We believe permitting will be relatively straightforward, particularly as the government has already committed to make permitting much faster than it has been in the past. The government has been supportive of mining projects that demonstrate environmental credentials. We are now going into this next phase, this next year, of looking for the right strategic partner that can help us to get that construction finance at very favorable terms into place. And above all, I think our ESG focus underpins everything that we do.
With this, we'll take the questions.
Aldo, Steve, thank you very much for your presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, please do continue to submit your questions just using the Q&A tab, which is situated on the top right-hand corner of your screen. But just while the company take a few moments to review those questions submitted today, I'd like to remind you that a recording of this presentation, along with a copy of the slides and the published Q&A, can be accessed via your investor dashboard. As you can see, we've received a number of questions throughout today's presentation, and thank you to all the investors for submitting those. Could I just ask you to read out those questions and give responses where it's appropriate to do so?
Steve, I think this first question from Edward is for you.
If lithium is the new oil, why do you think the major oil companies haven't started to move into the lithium sector? And do you foresee that one day this could happen? Well, what we've seen is the oil companies moving into this space, but at the other end. No, it's going into renewable energy. We've seen BP, Shell, others, definitely going into renewable energy. Also going into the construction of electric charging networks. So it's gradually working backwards. Whether it'll ever go all the way through to lithium, I don't know. No, clearly The oil industry did have a view that if they can extract oil, should they go into mining? 20, 30 years ago, a number of them went that way. All of them dropped out. They realized mining is very different from oil extraction. I worked for Billiton. That was the acquisition of all the mining assets from Shell, who decided to leave the mining industry. Whether they go back, we don't know. But mining is different to oil extraction. But they are going into the renewable space.
Okay, next question. In the previous meeting, you said that you have sufficient resources until the feasibility stage, but do you have collected new resources? Yeah, we explained partially this. Yamara wasn't there, and we need resources to drill and expand drilling if necessary. We didn't have we had a very low budgeting going forward, hydrogeological studies, and now in full expansion of that is significant more resources. We had funded the previous drilling campaigns, but again, we spend more as we drill more. We expanded our team, and also we took all these resources with the aims of also working, expanding our footprint in the world, and we have various conversations of going to other markets and dual listing in other markets. And again, this not only came from us, came from our existing shareholders who encourage us to improve their resources, to expand the company, and do it as fast as we can. Steve, I don't know if you want to add a little bit to that. We actually left some money on the table. We had a very successful. We were aiming for 8 million pounds, and we went all the way to 12, and the number was a little higher, and we cut it back. And then we had from primary bid a little bit more than 300,000 pounds. They sent us a very nice mail complimenting us for the speed and the amount of how that was done. Steve, I don't know if we have anything else.
Yeah, I think we looked at the market in London. We had very strong support from the institutions, and of course from our existing investors. I mean, one of them, Regal, was a 9.6% shareholder institution from Australia. They've gone all the way to 16%. Most of the other institutions increased their participation in the project. We did the book build very, very quickly last Wednesday, but made sure that we did not disenfranchise any of our smaller shareholders, and put together this primary bid proposal where anybody could sign into primary bid and participate in the raise. So we wanted to make sure none of our shareholders were disenfranchised through the capital raising process, and I think it went very successfully.
Yeah, question to you, Steve. Also, how will be collected $400 million resource required for production? In this case, I will add to the question for each of the two projects, projecting at 20,000 tons per year.
Yeah, no. Our estimate is 400 million. Normally, we would finance in the mining sector. Part of that will come from equity from the shareholders, and the major part from debt. Whether this is 40% equity, 60% debt, I think because these projects are going to be such strong cash flow, that could be pushed to 30, maybe 20% equity and 70 or 80% debt. So if we're looking at shareholders bring in 80 to 120 million in equity, the bulk of it coming from debt, we want to have a strategic investor coming into the project that can really mobilize that debt. Typical project, I worked with Escondida and Collahuasi. Both of those we brought in a Japanese strategic investor. They put in their own equity participation in the finance. They took offtake contract, provided offtake finance, and then mobilized the banks such as Jexim in Canada, export finance banks, and the commercial banks to provide the large part of that debt financing. we would do exactly the same, whether it's with Japanese or Chinese or European or North American investors. We have many options to get that debt finance in place.
Yeah. Is the plan to develop one mine of all three or all three simultaneously? Where we're developing two simultaneously, Francisco Basin and Laguna Verde. They're a little bit one is a little bit more advanced than the other, like the case of Laguna Verde. So we don't know if we'll go with both at the same time out. It will depend on the environmental studies and also the amount of resources, or if we have one and then the other. And Yamara, if Yamara is successful, if we find lithium and we expand the drilling there, it will come in third place. Again, it's not easy to run simultaneously drilling programs and expand projects forward at the same time, but we're doing it at least with two of the three. The next question is, this week, Galan Lithium released an updated JORC of 5.8 million tons at 866 milligrams per liter, 76% in measured capacity. Their market cap is 480 million Australian dollars. How we compare to this and how this contrasts to CTL? You want to answer, Steve, or myself?
Yeah, I think if we look at a few of these comparisons, the closest in terms of lithium grade to us is Lake Resources. They're about 200 milligrams per liter. We're 200 to 300. Lake has 4.4 million tons of lithium carbonate. We believe will be about that by the middle of next year, whereas our market cap is about $40 million. Lake is $800 million, 20 times that. So that gives you an idea of the potential for share price revaluation during the course of the next year as we produce more results on our drilling, resource expansion, metallurgical results, scoping studies. We believe there's no reason why we cannot get to the same sort of market valuation as Lake. Galan is about 480. They're not as advanced in terms of their share price as Lake, and a lot of this is also to do about the amount of marketing which they're doing in the various communities. We're listed in London. We are listed in Frankfurt. We're in discussion with a number of parties to assist us with marketing of the company in Frankfurt. We've had discussions on potentially having an OTC listing in the United States. We've had discussions with our broker Canaccord on the potential of listing with a dual listing in Australia. The board haven't taken any decisions on these, but clearly we know that to get our story more widely known around the world, increased activity on marketing will be required, and hence also this additional funding that came in will help to support whichever way we go.
Yeah, the next question speaks of, do you foresee that the hard rock lithium miners will one day be replaced by direct lithium extraction lithium miners? Interesting to hear your thoughts on the more polluting hard rocks compared to the DLEs. Yes, hard rock mining is much more polluting than DLE. Evaporation ponds come in the middle. What we foresee now is that the brine development projects are much larger than hard rock lithium projects, and it will take over again. In the past, before the development of hard rock lithium, especially in Australia, with financed heavily by Chinese off-takers, were less in the market. And we see DLE taking most of the new developments, as I show in a chart over the presentation, of the brine sector. And we see DLE as being mainstream. Of course, there's these black box technology providers, but at the same time, some resin and the industry, the mining industry in general, who tends to control the processes and go forward. Despite another question, good buying interest in stock, there seems to be an awful lot of ongoing selling, often 1 or 2 million shares a day, which is holding the share price down. given you only have 79 million shares outstanding, have you analyzed your registers to see this ongoing selling is coming from? You want to comment, Steve, and I can complement maybe?
Yeah, I think we're now up to 105 million shares. I think that most of the institutions have been very sticky, and they're holding on to their stock. They're not coming into the market. One of them did sell some of the shares which they had picked up during the pre-IPO and IPO round, part of a normal balancing of portfolios. But they came into this capital raise and increased their participation as well. I think that the large part of the selling is in the retail sector. That's to be expected. There's going to be if there's good movement in the share price, that's with good liquidity. Hence, we went to primary bid to increase the numbers of retail investors, and that's a good thing in the long term. I think that where we are today is having a very good base. We did this capital raise at 47p. Today we started to move up as some of the brokers have started to put buy notices on the company. The company, as it gets more recognized, I think we can only see the share go one way. At least that's our expectation.
There's two more questions about funding and offtake strategic partners. Steve, one is there a preference for offtake strategic partner being from the US or from Europe based? And the next one is, do you know who have been the main advisors on the strategic tie-ups with the trading companies and end users? How can we be sure that you will get the best terms of your production funding tie-up? I put them together because it's just kind of the same.
Yeah,
the same
clearly, there's a number of strands there. The EU wants clean lithium into the market. It is also concerned with increasing China dominance of the lithium market. I think that a large part of the lithium carbonate hydroxide that's produced, certainly from hard rock, goes through China. 80% of the cathodes are coming from China. They're participating in batteries all the way through to supply the car manufacturers. The EU wants to get greater diversity. I think that gives us an advantage in trying to attract the right strategic investor from the EU. The other area, as Aldo mentioned, is the Inflation Reduction Act in the United States, which requires lithium and other battery materials to come from the United States or from a free trade agreement country by 2026. 80% must come from US or FTA country. Chile is the only FTA country that's producing lithium. Now, in future, there will be some production from Canada and Mexico, but Chile is the dominant FTA producer of lithium. So both those strands work in our favor. But clearly, I mean, the Chinese and the Japanese trading houses will make a strong push as well. They want additional material. It all adds to our ability to be selective in who we believe will be the strongest strategic partner for the benefit of our shareholders and the development of the project going forward.
Yeah, there's an interesting question for me. If we think we will be listing in Santiago, and what stage of corporate development will be eligible for the private retirement funds that by law are having Chile is a big motor of the stock market. First to say, we have, other than myself, who are one of the two principal minority personal shareholders now, after Regal funds increase a little bit from below 10% of the registry to up to 16. I diluted to 10% along with the other co-founder from Australia, who also have 10%. We had almost £1 million on the pre-IPO when we did 4 million in the last October from people from Chile who are connected with the central bank, who are connected with the stock market, and so on. We haven't been deciding on the listing in Santiago. We're looking right now at other parts of the world. There'll be a very important board being held in Chile with everybody coming here. for the last week of November, the first week of December, and we'll certainly are looking and having our eye on this, and we'll go forward. If we deem it as important, we'll go forward with this. Oh, can you securely reserve the electrical power requirement ahead of commissioning the plant? Yeah, of course. Yeah, we haven't engaged in the final power purchase agreement conversations, but like I said, I'm very part of the development of making Chile now more than 50% of the grid being renewable energy. And there's plenty capacity. There's plants being constructed. The whole Chilean 90% of the Chilean energy requirements is connected with one of the longest north to south transmission lines. That means you can bring aeolic and hydroelectrical renewable energy from the south of Chile to the north, and photovoltaic from the north to the central Chilean south, and that assures a 24/7 energy. And again, a PPA or even buying on the spot are things that are very common in the mining industry, and there's enough production and future production to be able to achieve that. We answer all the questions.
Yes, Aldo, Steve, thank you very much for that. I think you actually managed to address every single question from investors. And of course, the company will review all those questions submitted today and will publish those responses on the Investment Company platform. But just before redirecting investors to provide you with their feedback, which I know is particularly important to you both, Aldo, could I just ask you for a few closing comments?
Yes. Again, the major 3 points is that we are a green, low-emission lithium company. We're aiming to producing this green lithium with direct lithium extraction, along with renewable energy in the leading mining jurisdiction of Chile. We have a board and management experience of delivering, as Steve said and I said, mining projects from exploration into production. And again, to tell all investors, current and future, that this is an unrivaled opportunity to invest in a really heavily undervalued lithium project. That's it. That's
Aldo,
the invitation.
Steve, thanks once again for updating investors today. Could I please ask investors not to close this session, as you'll now be automatically redirected to provide your feedback in order that the management team can better understand your views and expectations. This will only take a few moments to complete, but I'm sure will be greatly valued by the company. On behalf of the management team of CleanTech Lithium PLC, we'd like to thank you for attending today's presentation, and good afternoon to you all.